Hi, I'm AC Strange, and this is the Bad Movie Show, episode 17, the prison movie show. Prison movies might as well be its own subgenre. I've seen so many different kinds. I've seen horror prison movies, funny prison movies. I even seen a romantic prison movie once. So, they're cool. There's something about, we never ever want to go to prison, but there's something about prison movies that make us come back for more. Tonight I have 3 completely different prison movies. Okay, I have a comedy, I have an action drama, and I have an exploitation film. So, let's get started. First up, I have Big Stan, rated R, 2009, from Out of Nowhere Production, written by Josh Lead, and directed and starring Rob Schneider, and also starring David Carradine as the Master. So Stanley Minton is a wealthy real estate mogul who basically makes his millions by ripping off retired seniors, okay, of their savings. He gets 3 to 5 years, but he also gets 6 months to put his affairs in order. And he's a small, geeky, kind of short guy who could possibly get raped in prison. So he vows to make himself unrapeable the time that he's at home. Then he meets the Master, a roughneck, gnarly, chain-smoking homeless guy that he takes into his home and with his wife, and he, the Master teaches him how to fight. Which the fighting training is pretty badass. I mean, think Kill Bill Volume 2. Okay, it's pretty gnarly. By the time Stan gets to Oaksburg prison, he is a badass. All right, and he proves it by beating the crap out of Big Raymond and some of the most dangerous men on the cell block. He eventually becomes the cell block's enforcer, and he declares that there will be no more rapes. No more rapes. But there's an evil warden who kind of gives him a get out of jail free card if he helps him with a shady real estate deal, which involves the demise of Stan's prison mates. So this is hysterically funny and surprisingly tough. The fight scenes are really good, but it's a Rob Schneider movie, so it gets kind of goofy. There's a dance scene, but it's hilarious. And the biggest surprise in this movie is by the end, Stan's a bit of a hottie. I never thought that I would think that Rob Schneider was cute, but in this movie he is. He's pretty badass, man. He does most of his own fighting, so it rocks hard. So I'm going to give this a 3.5 and a buy it, okay? If you're into outrageous comedies, this deserves to be in your collection. This was hilarious. Okay, so yeah. Very surprising, Rob Schneider, kind of QT. Alright, next up, In Hell. Back comes the multi-back. In Hell, Millennium Films and First Look Studios, 2003, rated R, written by Eric James Burgess and Jorge Alvarez, directed by Ringo Lam, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Lawrence Taylor. And I have to also tell you that Robert Luzardo's in this. He is my favorite heavily tattooed actor. He was born and raised in Brooklyn, and I will always let you know when he's in a movie, because I love him. He's my type of guy, so I dig him and I like what he does. So in this, Kyle LeBlanc is a French-American who works in Russia, and he comes home one day to find his wife killed in a home invasion. When the guy who did it is found not guilty, Mr. LeBlanc shoots him dead right there in the courthouse. Okay? He gets life in prison with no chance of parole. Alright? And he goes to a Russia prison, dude. It's rough. It's badass where he goes. So, Kyle LeBlanc is, he gets to prison and he spends most of his time in solitary, where he bonds with this crazy mutant guy in the cell next to his. And when he's not in solitary, he shares a cell with a prisoner 451, who is the nastiest, meanest, craziest man in the prison, and even the guards are scared of this guy. Okay? Kyle LeBlanc is a regular dude who barely knows how to fight, and he gets his ass kicked a lot, until he's totally sick of it. And he starts to, you know, work out and train and becomes an animal. Alright? Enter Sparga. Alright, the prison's illegal fight to the death event. And he wins his first time in Sparga, but not very easily. You know, he gets his ass kicked. Okay? It's a miracle he survives. And he eventually becomes the champion of Sparga until he decides he no longer wants to be the prison's puppet, and he no longer wants to fight. So this is intense, and there is a lot of fighting in this. But it's not like what you're used to seeing from Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's not the martial arts master in this. In fact, Kyle LeBlanc's a regular dude. You know, he barely knows how to fight. Everything that, when he does fight, he's fighting to survive. So it's not clean fighting. It's like really brutal, brawling fighting. And that's what I like about this film the most, because I know what Jean-Claude Van Damme can do. We've seen his movies. And he's not fighting like that at all. It's almost like he threw all that away, and he's really trying hard to fight like a regular guy would, just trying to survive. And that makes this movie excellent and worth seeing. Also, Lawrence Taylor as prisoner 451 is scary as hell and impressive. Jean-Claude Van Damme's performance, I mean, he barely has any dialogue. It's completely physical. And he's fantastic in this. I'm going to give In Hell 4.5. And a buy it if you see it. You know, it's worth seeing. It's fantastic. We all love it in my house. And it's really, really good. It's better than you think. And worth seeing. Put it on your list. Last but not least, Women's Prison Massacre. Not rated, 1983. Retro Shockorama Cinema. Directed by Gilbert Russell. Starring Laura Jesmer, Gabrielle Dinty, and Ursula Flores. So this starts with Emmanuelle, who's a journalist who is framed for drug smuggling and goes to prison. She's basically bullied and tortured by the cell block hammer Albina. Okay, and the warden and COs, they're horrible. They beat and torture the girls daily. Enter 4 crazy death row prisoners that are being transferred to another prison. There's a failed prison escape, and they are sent to the women's prison to stay there temporarily. Okay? These 4 nasty guys, they escape right away. They hold the warden prisoner as well as everybody else in the prison. They're like kids in a candy store in this women's prison. They go from cell to cell. They beat and rape these ladies. They even have their way with the men. And, you know, it gets, you know, it's very, very sexual, and there's a lot of nudity, and it gets really rough towards the end. I started to like this movie, but the end was very disappointing to me. So, unfortunately, I'm going to give this movie a 2. But I would see it again at the bar with no sound. Because there's this one character, his whole role is like this. Through the whole movie. It's really crazy. This is an Italian movie, and the version I have is not very well dubbed. But, you know, I guess if you like these types of movies, it's worth seeing. But, like I said, the end was very disappointing. So I'm only going to give it a 2. So, that's it for me tonight. So what did you think? You must know at least one prison movie worth talking about. I want to hear it. And do you think that this is a theme worth doing again? Until then, please watch more movies. I'm AC Strange, and this is a Bad Movie Show. Thank you. Good night.